Hello, this is Imad, and welcome to the first inaugural podcast episode of Playing Card Pride. This is a podcast where we will be interviewing people throughout Toronto and maybe eventually other places about the gay, queer, trans experience. This could be anything about that. I do have a set amount of questions, but hopefully it will be diversified from as we go on, and any answers will breed some other questions. And today we are here with
Jeri.
I don't think it's necessary for future episodes to name and record the people who are having this, but this is my best friend. Yep. So just wanted to shout them out because thank you, Jeri, for being on the first podcast recorded episode of Playing Card Pride. And I'm really excited to get to hear about your queer experience.
I'm super pumped to be on the inaugural episode. Oh my gosh. I think my queer experience is definitely super unique because it is like the least queer experience there is around. But I am queer, and I think that adds to the diversity of what it means to be queer, because it's an umbrella for so much. Yeah.
Exactly. Great, we're going to jump in. So the first question I always ask is, how do you identify in terms of sexuality and gender?
Horny. I am bisexual. I do use all pronouns, but I think most of my days I'm super femme presenting, and I am just very used to she, her pronouns. So like if anyone was to ask me, my answer would be she, her, but any pronoun works for me as well.
Would you say you have like a nebulous or like a not caring attitude towards gender?
Definitely, especially since like I am super gender fluid, and I have spent the better part of a decade being a drag king, and so oftentimes if I'm not using she, her, then I am using he, him, and I spend a lot of time in queer spaces and queer communities, so they, them also is often just used on the degular.
Cool. So how does being queer and gender, what do you say, apathetic is what I want to say, how does that affect your life?
I would say that if it was to affect my life, which it doesn't actually have a big impact on my day-to-day, if anything, I think it affects me in a positive way, because it really just allows me to have another community to be a part of, and it's usually a very welcoming and a very open community, and I personally am a very welcoming and open person, and like all about being in spaces where we should be allowed to express our truest selves at that moment. And so I love that I have that avenue and that space to have that. I find that like in my familial personal life, it is something that only comes up when my mom remembers, and she then tries to use that against me, in the sense of like, I don't know how I came up with how I got too queer pitney to coming out of me, and like thinking that there's something wrong with her. Like in a familial state, it doesn't really, I guess it's a negative impact because I come from a very Christian Jamaican family, very traditional family, and so it's oftentimes only referenced in negative connotations when it's coming from my family.
Okay. Yeah. So, how does that make you feel? How the negative connotations coming from your family?
I think that my mom made a decision to have her children in Canada, which can be a very inclusive place, and that also means that you have the possibility of having your child being more than what you expected. And so when those moments happen, I let her know the reality check. This is, you put me in a place where it's okay to be whoever I want. And unfortunately for you, this is who I am. So you can either get with the program or get off the program, which oftentimes when I lay it out like that, she like shuts up, or like she gets with the program. It's not like she's shunned me or anything like that, but you know, if I show up at home in drag, then she has an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate. I think the contention of dragness has been a big issue for my family.
Yeah.
So I can kind of understand what you mean by that. But to touch on, you were saying how being queer affects your life by giving you community. Can you talk about your community, what it is, how it affects you, what do you feel about that?
Yes. So, event planning is what I do. It's what I love, and I've been able to curate a lot of really great spaces. But I would say that the best spaces that I love to create are going to be the queer spaces. Like, it has opened up a whole level, a whole niche of events and things that I can do that people actually will come out and support. People will come out and support, and they would love it because they know that these kinds of spaces are sacred, and these kinds of spaces are necessary. And so I've been able to meet so many people, so many, like I said, open-minded people that are just wanting everyone to be able to express themselves in their own way. I probably, a lot of my closest friends are people that I've met thanks to the queer spaces that I'm in, the drag spaces, the open mic spaces, the zine spots, all these things that I wouldn't even know exist if I didn't have the queer community to expose me to these kinds of things. Like my art, my artistic level, my poetry, my spoken word, like those are things that I've only been able to develop because I have spaces like the queer spaces that I'm in to be able to display those.
That's great. It's great to hear that queer communities are able to foster your creativity, which is something I think is I can relate to as well, but I never really thought about it that way. So you're absolutely right about that. What is it about being queer that you're most grateful for?
I feel like I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it is that ability to express yourself unapologetically, openly, and even just the bravery to express yourself. That is something that I really, really do appreciate about the queer community.
That's great. How does intersectionality play in the role of your queerness? So I know people who are podcasting this can't see you, unless they go to your Instagram or something like that, but you are a Black woman and you have, and there's a lot of other aspects of intersectionality that can play a role. So can you speak about that?
Yes. So being a Black queer woman, a Caribbean Black queer woman, as I started, I am like the least queer person around, in my opinion, and I find that is the intersectionality doesn't really come through unless people start asking questions, and people don't usually ask questions unless I do something or say something that seems a little bit off from what their initial vision of me is. But I do enjoy when I get those questions asked because I feel like I open up their minds a little bit more to what is possible. And when the questions come, they never come off in like a negative way. It comes off in a way of curiosity. And so I enjoy being a person that can answer so many questions from so many different perspectives. That the intersectionality of who I am gives me a chance to educate so many other people.
That's great. So you can serve. I guess I definitely see you as a leader and a role model to so many people, whether they're coming up in drag or whether they're just exploring queer and trans spaces. So I can definitely see you using your intersectionality for that, which is really great. So it is Pride Month. What is your favorite thing about Pride, and what does Pride mean to you?
My favorite thing about Pride is the idea of like unity and everybody coming together as one to celebrate that expression. That's kind of like I also feel hypocritical because the reason I'm like not attending the pride marches and things like that is because there's too many people. Like, but I love that is what is happening. Like, that is a good problem to have, that there are too many people celebrating and rejoicing that idea of being themselves. And that's what pride means to me. It means having the bravery, the confidence, the assurity that you are not broken. You are exactly who you are, and there is no reason to change who you are.
Beautiful. I love that. So you have touched on the fact that you are a drag king. What does drag mean to you? How does that play a role in your gender or your expression, or what does drag mean to you?
Yes, great question. So I have always been very gender fluid and just never had a word for it. Like, growing up, I was super tomboy, but my mom hated that, obviously, because she thought that meant I was a lesbian. And so she was like, no, I only have, like, my girl children have to be girls. And so I took that as as a reason to, like, only wear booty shorts. Like, if I wasn't wearing ball shorts, I was wearing the shortest, skimpiest things that you can find around. And so all the way up until the end of high school, I was on both ends of the spectrum, and only extreme ends. I was either extremely masculine or extremely feminine, like full beat makeup, all the whole thing. And I think that as I grew and, like, started learning about what gender fluidity is, that helped me get off of the extremes and understand that I don't need to ever fall under one specific category. I can be who I feel that day without worrying about how I look affects anyone else. Rude. There was a horn just now. How I look affects anyone else around me, because and really that's that. Yeah, thank you for asking that. That was a really big lesson for me, and a really big realization right now, is that I have spent so much time worrying about how who I am impacts everyone else around me, rather than being just concerned about how who I am impacts me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Do you have any 2S LGBTQIA idols or heroes, people in your life, whether they be famous or less famous or not famous, just to you?
Yes, people in my life. One person, Pretty Ricky, he is a trans man who started off as a drag king, and he is one of the very few drag king gender performer producers who produce specifically drag king shows. And when he met me, he took me under his wing instantly and started putting me in his shows, which were very, very well produced, well-known shows. Started to give me that exposure, started to expose me and introduce me to so many people. But what has kept us friends for so long, as he doesn't produce as much anymore, is that he was such a genuine person. And once again, never ever made me feel small, never made me feel like I couldn't be who I wanted to be, who I was, and who I am. And I really, really appreciate him. He is unapologetically him, and that is what's so beautiful about him. In terms of, like, famous people, there is no one that stands out that I'm like, that I look up to them because they're queer. Yeah. Or I look up to them and they're also queer. Like, no one comes to mind, because I don't look up to Ricky because he's queer. I look up to Ricky because he is who he is.
Yeah.
So yeah, Ricky would be the number one person that I think.
That's great. So you were kind of touching on the drag queen answer about how you grew up and you didn't have a word for
Gender fluidity.
Yes. Was your journey in terms of coming to terms with or understanding your queerness and your gender fluidity, was that a long process? Was that a journey? Was it something that you always understood but you didn't have a word for?
Yeah, I think it was something that I always understood but never had a word for it. Like when so up until I was like 5 years old, I thought I was a boy. Like, and the reason why is because like in the womb, my mom, the doctor told my mom that I was going to be a boy, and then so they prepped everything for a boy. And then when I was born, it was like no penis, like. But everything was already boy things. So up until I was 5, I was wearing all of like my male cousin hand me downs and everything like that. And whenever I look back on pictures, I would be like, oh yeah, no, that's when I was a boy. And so that idea of gender fluidity and like the my understanding of gender has always been fluid. From as young as I can remember, I have always been switching genders. And so, yes, as I got older, that's when that became clearer to me. The journey itself, I think I've always like tried or thought of myself as being um, authentic. Um, but I never put a word on it. Like, there was never a question for me. However, through age, there was an answer. Yeah.
That's good. How about you? You mentioned at the top of the episode that you're bisexual. Was that the same case for your bisexuality?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I've always been into women. I've always thought that ladies look great. I remember like when I was younger, there was a specific moment where like I was playing jock and cheerleader, and I had like a life-size Barbie doll I was maybe like 4 foot and the Barbie doll was like 3 foot, but I remember being like the jock and like being like, oh, this is my cheerleader girlfriend and stuff like that. So once again, there was never a question for me. This was just how I was.
If you had to send a message to young queer folks or the queer community as a whole, what would you want to let them know?
I would want them to know that there is nothing wrong with them, that this is something that they should explore to their full extent, because there is no better time like now than to figure out who you are. And that doesn't mean you're going to figure it out at that very moment. It means that you can start that journey at any moment and it be the right time, and that journey will continue for probably a very long time. And so through that journey, please find community, find people that you can confide in, find people that resonate with you, and that you can just have both regular conversations, as well as be able to ask them the more serious questions that you haven't been able to find the answers to yourself. They probably won't have the answers either, but at least you have someone else to contemplate things with.
Yeah, I mean, communities play such a big role for you, and I think as an event organizer, you see the value in that. So that really aligns with your message, which I really love. What do you hope for the future of the queer and trans community?
I hope that there will come a time where we don't have to differentiate, that we don't have to be clipped under a singular umbrella. I was talking with a coworker the other day, and he was saying how he doesn't like that there are what is the word I'm looking for? All gender bathrooms, I think. Is there not another word for that?
I think all gender bathroom. I don't.
Yeah.
All gender bathroom. Yeah.
So that he doesn't like all gender bathrooms, and not in my head, I said it out loud. I was like, what is there not to, it's a toilet. Like,
when you're at home, that's an all gender bathroom.
Like, you don't need a standing urinal, and there can be a standing urinal in an all gendered bathroom as well. Like, what is the issue? And so I would love for there to be a time where that question doesn't have to be posed. It's just regular, that it's just a bathroom in the end. It doesn't have to have a specific gender. And so I would really like that, where we don't have to specify anymore.
Great. And my last question I'd like to ask is, what do you hope for your personal future?
For my personal future, I hope that I can create even larger communities for the queer community, larger spaces for these communities to thrive. I hope that I can continue to secure my own personal community and the peers that I have around me, that they are people of passion, and that I can surround myself with people that I would want to be more like.
Amazing. Thank you so much for talking with me, Jeri. It's always a pleasure. I'm sure you know how much I love you. And let's get you to decorate a card.
Awesome.
Can you tell me about your card?
Yes. So I have the Six of Hearts. I drew a beautiful flower, sunflower-esque, but not a full sunflower, that is absolutely radiating with a little yin yang in the corner.
Okay, and was any elaboration on the meaning of why you drew what you drew?
Yes. So when it comes to the flower, the radiating flower, I very much consider myself a sunflower, and I try my hardest to embody what a sunflower is to me, which is positivity, which is strength, which is, it's also community, and openness. I think there's nothing more expressive than a sunflower. A sunflower is unapologetically bright, unapologetically positive. And it is something that is also seen that way in like every single culture. Mm-hmm. I don't think that there is a single culture, and if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me, that sees a sunflower as a bad omen. The yin and yang is to remind me of balance. Even as a bright, radiating sunflower, I need to remind myself that I don't always have to be that bright person, that it's okay for me to feel negative, to feel down, to not always be the happiest person in a room, because that's so draining. Mm-hmm. That is so fucking draining to have to maintain that kind of energy. The Six of Hearts, I think that that's just really interesting in itself. Given there's so much context to the Six of Hearts, and I still feel the Six of Hearts a lot right now. Mm-hmm. That reminds me of a very toxic relationship that I recently came out of, but it still is with me so much. Like I look forward to the day when that relationship doesn't define me as much in my own head, because it's in my head where that lives. But we're growing, and we are doing the best we can every day.
It's a great way to end the episode. So thank you so much, Jeri. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.
Always a pleasure with you. So thank you all for listening to the first episode of Playing Heart Pride. You can follow our Instagram, which I will make, that I haven't even made yet before I've interviewed this person. I'll probably add a little note on it afterwards, record later. But I will be recording all throughout Pride weekend. So if you're hearing this after the fact, I hope you've enjoyed your time listening to this. And I'll see you in the next one.